Fantastic. Thank you, John.
With any luck, we'll be good.
John Sellens.
So there's a USB key coming around. Most people have seen that. And if you go to my website, the slides are there. I put them there with a fabulous rsync command. And there's no PowerPoint involved in any of this stuff, so we should be good. Now, I've been talking about Nagios and monitoring for a bunch of years now, and this is I normally give this as a 3-hour class. Today it's 1 hour and 45. So on the weekend, I was frantically typing in magic LaTeX commands to comment out this bit and comment out that bit. I'm guessing we're maybe in the 1 hour 45 range. We'll see how it goes. If I look at my watch and towards the end and I say, holy crap, just, cut me a little slack is all I'm saying. So what I'm going to try and do today is introduce you, I hope, to some of the non-obvious bits in Nagios, what I think of the non-obvious bits. I'm assuming that probably most of the people here have some familiarity with Nagios. I'm going to try not to hit the low-level stuff. If there's Nagios developers in this room, feel free to tell me where I'm wrong. I'm hoping there won't be too many of those, but we'll see how it goes. I always start out with a religion slide. And I noticed that here, other people have been talking, people say, you want to check a remote machine? Well, you use NRPE or things like that. And I say, so my religion is several-fold. But monitoring, I always talk about exceptions, trending, history. History is when you're collecting data for billing or law enforcement. We're not talking about that. Trending is when you make pretty pictures. I tend to believe having pretty pictures of graphs over time is best done by tools outside of Nagios. Many people disagree with that point of view. But I'm an old school Unix guy. One tool does one job well. And I think for my way of looking at the world, sometimes doing graphing outside in something like Cacti or Munin or MRTG or any number of other things is a good way to go. Some people say, but you're collecting the same data twice? And I say, yes, but I'm collecting it in little short 400-byte UDP packets over my gigabit network. The extra network overhead is irrelevant in many cases. That's my claim anyway. SNMP is your friend. So wherever possible, I think if you want to get information off a remote machine, use SNMP to get that information. I try and avoid doing check by SSH or NRPE, but on the other hand, I'll mention something else later that completely contradicts what I just said there. My argument for using SNMP is you probably have some switches or some routers or some firewalls or some appliances of one kind or another in your network that you want to talk to. You probably have to do SNMP to them anyway. So therefore, you have SNMP running over your network using SNMP plugins. Why not use it as widely as possible for consistency across all your devices, whether it's a server or a network device? Not everyone agrees with me. We can discuss it at the reception tonight. And this is a plug for my talk tomorrow morning at 9 o'clock, and I hope everybody's there on time, and myself included. I believe you can solve any problem in computer science with another layer of indirection. And I mentioned that a few times here today, and there'll be more tomorrow, with any luck. I was thinking that my phone just went off, and it was a Twitter. It wasn't an alert. I thought we should have a contest during these 3 days of who gets the most alerts from their Nagios servers. And if you get the most pages over this 3-day period, then you win, I don't know, our sympathy or something like that. So the important thing here that I wanted to point out, down at the bottom, Nagios Core, it's just an engine. It schedules stuff and it runs commands. It's not any smarter than that. It schedules stuff in, nicely, and it does some interesting things, and you can sometimes do, well, if I ran this and this happened, then do this other thing as well. But really, Nagios Core is just a thing that runs commands and perhaps reacts based on what that command told it back. And the other element here, discrete components, and I've got a picture that I stole from Ethan on the next page or so to reinforce that idea. When I first started looking at NetSaint many years ago, I was actually in a hotel room before, and I was talking about SNMP or monitoring the next day with a whole bunch of tools that are now dead and gone. And I said, well, let me try installing this NetSaint thing and see what it's like. And it installed so nicely and cleanly, and everything worked. But one of the things I noticed was that Nagios Core and the Nagios plugins were separate packages. And I thought, well, that's just crazy. That's just nutty. And not only were they separate packages, but they're separate maintainers. You know, there's the Nagios Core team and the Nagios plugins team. And I thought, this is insane. And I was wrong. It's actually part of the brilliance that is Nagios. I can say brilliance here, right? Because this is, you know, everybody likes Nagios here, right? So it's all brilliant. So the important things here are that really Nagios has the core components, and they've got well-defined interfaces between them, and that is a huge win. And hopefully I can demonstrate some of that today and tomorrow as well. Well over 1 million installations. You know, Ethan was at Ohio Linux 2 years ago, and he talked about Nagios. He said, there's over 1 million known Nagios 3 instances. And I thought, how does he know that? You know, when you go to the Nagios homepage on your monitoring system and it pops up information like about the conference or there's an update available, that's how he knows that. Because when it starts up, it goes to one of his servers and says, hello, I'm here, and what have you got for me? So used widely, we know that. So here's the picture I stole. And I forget the conference, but in the notes it says exactly what conference, so I'm giving credit where credit is due. And the reason I like this picture is that it shows the different parts of it. So here's like core Nagios, there's the web server and the CGIs, external applications, that's anything else you might want to tie into Nagios. Check commands, those are the plugins, the things you're actually interested in monitoring over here, and the 2 people over there standing by just in case anything ever goes wrong. And you know, there's config data there and state data, external command files. So it shows all the different parts, and it reinforces the idea that there are interfaces between all those components. And it's, well, it doesn't show it here, but those are all well-defined interfaces. So for example, the external command file where it's a pipe in the file system, and you can shove commands in there to do things like, schedule downtime or acknowledge a problem or things like that. And you can also do that to, can you do everything in the files now? Well, there's a couple ways to do some things, but basically there's an interface where you can throw commands at Nagios. And there is a web page that says, here are all the 140 some odd commands you can stuff in the external command pipe and exactly what they do. And the interface between a plugin and the Nagios core, it's well defined. You know, you get some stuff on the command line, you get some environment variables, you run something, and you return a 0, 1, 2, 3 as the exit status, and some text. So it's very well defined, but very simple interfaces between all the parts. And that's part of the brilliance. Back in the old days, everybody built everything from source. You know, you'd get it off the net, you know, get it from comp sources, Unix on the Usenet thing. You've heard of Usenet, right? Yeah, okay, good. You're all making that up because I'm far older than most of you guys. And so everybody would compile everything from source. Nowadays, mostly you just type, you know, yum install Nagios or apt-get install Nagios, or I'm a FreeBSD guy, so I go to the ports tree and install it there. So most times we just accept the defaults. But I wanted to mention in particular 2 things. So there's an embedded Perl interpreter that you can have inside the Nagios core. And in the olden days, when machines were slow and there wasn't much memory and it would take Perl a long time to start up, maybe that was a good idea. But now we have much faster CPUs, much more memory. Perl still takes a long time to start up, but I think it's, you know, something that we can deal with. So my religion says, don't embed Perl in Nagios. It just makes things behave weirdly. If you look in the documentation, it mentions there are certain things you can do in a Perl script that work in the embedded, that work normally but will not work with the embedded Perl. So my religion is just avoid the embedded Perl. And the other thing you want to do is enable Event Broker. That enables the Event Broker interface, of course, so you can do things like NDO utils and oh, what's the other thing I'm thinking of that's really cool? There's an overview interface called Thruck. So there's Nagios Fusion, which gives you an interface looking at multiple different Nagios instances. Thruck is another tool along those same lines, and it uses, I forget what it is, I think it's in the notes later on. But basically there's an Event Broker interface, a plugin that gets run on your Nagios servers on the remote side, and Thruck gets that information out of those remote